Picture this, a towering figure with a distinctive mustache, piercing eyes, and a voice that could send chills down anyone's spine. Yet behind that menacing screen presence lived a man who collected priceless art, authored gourmet cookbooks, and called some of Hollywood's most elegant estates home. Today, we're stepping inside the luxurious world of Vincent Price, the master of horror who lived like royalty. Vincent Leonard Price Jr. wasn't born into the typical struggling actor's life. Born in 1911 in St. Louis, Missouri, he was the youngest of 4 children in a family that had already made their fortune. His grandfather had invented Dr. Price's baking powder, and his father ran the National Candy Company, making Vincent heir to considerable wealth even before his first film role. This privileged upbringing would shape not only his refined tastes, but also his approach to choosing where he lived throughout his illustrious career. Standing at an imposing 6 feet 3 inches tall, Price began his acting career in the 1930s, initially appearing in romantic leads and classical roles. But it was his transition into horror films in the 1950s that made him a household name. Movies like House of Wax, The Fly, and his collaborations with director Roger Corman on Edgar Allan Poe adaptations turned him into America's undisputed master of macabre. His filmography spans over 100 films across 7 decades, with his distinctive voice becoming so iconic that he narrated Michael Jackson's Thriller in 1982, introducing a whole new generation to his legendary presence. Despite being typecast in horror films, Price embraced his villainous roles while maintaining sophisticated tastes that reflected his wealthy background. At the time of his death in 1993, Vincent Price had accumulated a net worth of $5 million, equivalent to about $11 million in today's money. But his true passion lay beyond acting. He was a serious art collector whose personal collection was valued at over $5 million, rivaling his entire net worth. This combination of horror film success and refined artistic sensibilities was perfectly reflected in the magnificent homes he chose to call his own. So let's take a journey through the estates where Hollywood's most cultured villain lived, loved, and created his legendary legacy. The most famous of Vincent Price's residences was his stunning Spanish Revival estate in Holmby Hills, located at 580 North Beverly Glen Boulevard. Price owned this magnificent property from 1955 to 1974, living there for nearly 2 decades with his second wife, costume designer Mary Grant, and their daughter, Victoria. This wasn't just any Hollywood home. It was a masterpiece of 1920s architecture that embodied everything Price represented: elegance, sophistication, and just a touch of theatrical drama. Built in 1927, at the height of the craze for Spanish Revival elegance, this estate was one of the last surviving examples of the grand Spanish Revival mansions that once dominated the most exclusive neighborhoods of Los Angeles. The property sprawled across about 1.5 acres, offering Price the privacy and grandeur befitting a man of his stature in Hollywood's golden age. The approach to the home was nothing short of cinematic. Visitors would pass through stately wooden gates and up a long drive to a motor court and covered 2-car porte-cochere. The entrance itself was pure Hollywood glamour. You stepped through towering, sculpted metal doors, set in intricate carved stonework, and into a 2-story timbered cathedral lobby. Above, an imposing metal chandelier that could have been a prop from one of Price's horror blockbusters set the dramatic tone that defined both his screen persona and his personal style. The heart of the home was the vast, grand ballroom-style main room boasts wooden-beamed ceilings, an imposing fireplace, a Juliet balcony, and doors, leading out onto an elegant covered terrace. This was where Price entertained Hollywood's elite, surrounded by original architectural details that included leaded glass windows, handcrafted wrought iron detailing, barrel-vaulted ceilings with timber beams, solid wood plank and tile floors, and arched doorways. Every room told a story of old-world craftsmanship meeting Hollywood sophistication. The home's 8 bedrooms and 14 bathrooms in about 11,600 square feet, provided ample space for Price's growing art collection and his love of entertaining. The cozy master suite featured a barrel-vaulted ceiling, fireplace, walk-in closets, an office, and spa-style bathroom, a private retreat where the man who terrified audiences by day could relax in absolute luxury. But what made this estate truly special was how it reflected Price's sophisticated interests beyond acting. The property featured a wine cellar, art studio, playbook, movie theater, and billiards room with a wet bar. The art studio was where Price could indulge his passion for collecting and studying fine art, while the wine cellar housed his growing collection of fine vintages. Most intriguingly, the home included one of Hollywood's most exclusive amenities. Behind a secret door is the original Bel Air Circuit projection room. This projection room represents a fascinating piece of Hollywood history. Back in the glory days of Hollywood, movie moguls and A-list actors like Price were allowed to receive new films on the weekend they opened. They were delivered to the home, typically with a security guard and studio projectionist for a showing. Price was part of an exclusive circle of Hollywood elite who could watch the latest releases in their own homes, a privilege that demonstrated just how established he had become in the industry's hierarchy. The outdoor spaces were equally impressive. Outside, there's a pool with a cabana, a full basketball court, and tennis court with viewing pavilion. The landscaped grounds, full of grassy lawns and rose gardens, provided a serene backdrop that contrasted beautifully with the dramatic interiors. Price's kitchen in this estate deserves special mention, as it perfectly exemplified how he balanced historical preservation with modern convenience. You can get a little peek at how the cooking space used to look in the recently reprinted cookbook, Cooking Price-Wise, written by the late actor, who it turns out was also a serious chef. The updated kitchen maintained grand arched windows and alcoves. It even has a built-in wooden hutch, but it also has a large prep island and top-of-the-line stainless steel appliances. This perfectly captured Price's philosophy of honoring the past while embracing the future, much like his approach to his acting career. The Holmby Hills estate represented the height of Price's personal and professional success. It was here that he raised his daughter Victoria, entertained Hollywood royalty, and built one of the most impressive art collections on the West Coast. However, like many Hollywood stories, this chapter had a bittersweet ending. Divorce led to selling it, something Victoria says her mother was against. Instead, Victoria says her mother wanted to keep it as a joint business investment, but the marriage's end meant the end of Price's tenure in this magnificent estate. After Price sold the Holmby Hills estate in 1974, the property continued to attract high-profile owners who appreciated its historical significance and architectural beauty. Billionaire Peter Sperling, son of University of Phoenix founder John Sperling, purchased the estate for $15 million in 2004 and spent years carefully restoring the property to its former glory. When Sperling decided to sell the estate in 2019, the property was initially listed for $21 million, highlighting how Price's former home had become not just a piece of real estate, but a piece of Hollywood history. It eventually sold for $16.5 million in 2021, proving that homes with genuine Hollywood pedigree continue to command premium prices. While the Holmby Hills estate was Price's most famous residence, his living situation evolved throughout his life and career. Before purchasing the Spanish Revival mansion, Price had lived in various Los Angeles area homes as he established himself in Hollywood during the 1940s and early 1950s. These earlier homes reflected his growing success, but weren't yet the grand statement that the Holmby Hills estate would become. Throughout his various residences, certain elements remained constant, reflecting Price's sophisticated tastes and diverse interests. His homes always featured spaces for his extensive art collection, which included works by masters like Rembrandt and Picasso. He bought his first work, a Rembrandt etching, at age 12 for $37.50, beginning a lifelong passion that would eventually result in his private art collection coming to be valued at more than $5 million. Price's homes also reflected his passion for gourmet cooking. Long before celebrity chefs became mainstream, Price was writing cookbooks and hosting cooking shows. His kitchens were always well-appointed spaces where he could practice the culinary arts that he promoted through his cookbook, A Treasury of Great Recipes, which sold more than 350,000 copies. His love of cooking wasn't just a hobby, it was another avenue for expressing the sophisticated lifestyle he cultivated throughout his career. The spaces where Price lived also had to accommodate his various business ventures and artistic pursuits. As an art expert, he served as an art-buying consultant for the Sears Company during the 1960s, which meant his homes needed to serve as both personal residences and professional spaces where he could evaluate and authenticate artwork for one of America's largest retailers. Price died at age 82 of lung cancer on October 25, 1993, at his home in Los Angeles, California. Even in his final years, when he was battling Parkinson's disease alongside lung cancer, Price maintained the dignity and sophistication that had characterized both his screen presence and his personal life. His final home, wherever it may have been, would have been a reflection of a man who never compromised on his standards of elegance and culture. The fact that Price died at home rather than in a hospital speaks to his desire to maintain control over his environment and his image until the very end. His remains were cremated and his ashes scattered off Nicholas Canyon Beach near Point Dume in Malibu, connecting him one final time to the California landscape that had been his home for over 5 decades. If you enjoyed this peek behind the gates of Vincent Price's magnificent homes and learned something new about Hollywood's most cultured villain, please hit that like button and let us know in the comments which classic Hollywood star's home you'd like us to explore next. Until next time.